If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Tobias Baker on the show. He returns to action in a little over 2 weeks at PureCombat Battle of the Brave, taking on John Simon. The unbeaten Heathen is here. How are you, Tobias? And is this your first Skype interview? Is that accurate?
It is. I don't think I've used Skype since 8th grade.
We'll have to do Instant Messenger next time, and we'll be going way back in time.
Yeah, dude, throwing it back, keeping it original.
There we go. I'm honored to be the very first one on this side of the table. But, you know, in terms of your MMA career, you've been very active this year. 4 fights, 3 as a pro. You have yet to taste defeat in the year and a half you've been doing this. You're only 23 years old. Do you feel like things are clicking on all cylinders right now, or do you feel like this is just the beginning of something really special here?
I think it's the beginning of something really special. Everything has just been clicking. Everything has been falling into place. The moves, the technique, everything has been flowing really well. It's been, I've been going from one fight camp into the next, due to like myself being in fight camp or my training partner Adam being in fight camp or my other training partner Raymond Hill being in fight camp. It was just back to back to back, a lot of training and a lot of technique, and I feel like that helped me progress as fast as I have been. Just due to the amount of technique and training that we've been putting in.
I know you're just getting started here, but do you prefer to sort of just be in that camp over and over again, really not give you time to overthink anything, and just kind of keep on rolling here?
Well, it depends, because some guys, when they're in training camp, they're getting banged up real bad and, suffering like injuries and stuff like that. And luckily, I've always been kind of a durable guy. I think because of wrestling, I was able to kind of take that, like, you've got to be durable and you've got to be able to make it through the whole season to get to that postseason, that, to get to that hard part afterwards. And, I think I've kept a healthy mindset this whole time. And just, and then that's the way that I finish those fights, is that, I go in there and I try to get the finish. I've been trying to get out of there in the first round, because the quicker you're hopping into the next one and you're ready to go and climbing up the ladder. I took that page out of Ben Askren's book, as much as he hasn't been doing well lately, but yeah.
He's been entertaining nonetheless. I mean, all of his fights have been entertaining.
Yeah. With the talks of retirement and everything, it's definitely interesting to see him going down that path. But I still think he's an amazing fighter, amazing grappler. But it's definitely, it's a part of the game.
For sure. And he's never really had to experience losses like this. So it's a good learning lesson for him, even at this point in his career. In terms of where your short career at this point, you made your debut as an amateur last June. Selfishly, I love these stories because they're all different. They all come from different places. How did this all begin for you? Like, I know you mentioned you have a wrestling background. How did you get into this crazy world that is mixed martial arts?
All right. So it all actually started in North Dakota, right? Out in the good old Bakken. North Dakota, don't you know? I have to say that, because I got a lot of love for the Midwest, man. It breeds some really tough people, and I met some really great, amazing people out there that influenced definitely my MMA career. But I've been watching MMA and in MMA since I could walk, breathe, and talk. But for me, it was I was in the oil field, and I had been dabbling at this MMA gym for a while called Calavera Martial Arts, and I was training with some guys over there. I was training with this guy John Wilson that I wrestled with at Minot State. And I was training with another guy who was training for amateur fights, and I'd come in and help him out sometimes because we were around the same size. But I didn't know much striking or anything like that. I didn't have nearly enough time to train because I was working like 14-hour days out in the Bakken, and that was rough, trying to balance training and going and working these long hitches, and then I'd be gone for a couple months, and then I'd come back. So I kind of got sick of that, and really wanted to bite down and see what it was like to fully dedicate and apply myself and see what would happen if I applied myself, and found myself going to Oregon. I had a buddy who moved out here, and he's like, "Hey man, come out here. The weather's not that much nicer than North Dakota, but at least you're not going to be an icicle." So I was like, all right, and I moved out here. Really, really loved the change of scenery. I got a dog before I moved, and then just went ahead and drove 32 straight hours straight to Oregon. Put my car on a trailer and with no worries came here and walked into Jason's gym and told him that, hey man, I want to be a professional fighter one day. And he looked at me like I was insane. He looked at me like I was crazy.
Are you doing this full time now?
Yeah. So when I turned pro, I kind of made that agreement with myself. Like, we're going to be in the gym training 2 times a day. Like, usually no matter what, we're in here training, getting in here twice a day, 6 days a week. Obviously Sundays, we try to rest, but it all depends.
North Dakota is an interesting place. I was there for the first time ever last month covering the Valor Bare Knuckle event. And what an interesting place. The people are amazing, by the way. Very nice people.
Oh, Midwesterners are there's nice, and then there's Midwesterner nice.
So friendly. They're so friendly. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is an interesting spot. Not a lot going on where I was in Newtown. Yeah. So not a ton going on there.
That's actually where I used to work. I used to drive from Newtown, which is on the western part of the state a little bit. And I would drive that 2.5 hours just to go make noon mats when I was working night shift over there in Newtown. I would drive all the way to Minot, which is like a 2-hour drive. And then I would drive back that night for work. Oh, man.
I know that drive. I made the drive to and from the Minot airport twice, so I know that drive.
What do you know?
It's a very scenic drive, and you're like, wow, this is really nice. And then, like, 45 minutes into it, you're seeing a lot of the same scenery, and you're like, okay, give me something here. But
yeah, exactly.
Very cool how you made the transition from North Dakota to Oregon. And, since you made the move, you've had 5 fights. None of them gotten out of the first round, and I know there's a lot more fights to come. But thus far in your short career, what would you say is like the most satisfying win? What's the statement win? Like, what's the highlight reel fight that everyone should go YouTube and watch for those seeing you for the first time right now?
I'm trying to think what film I actually have that people can see. I mean, be my guest and go watch any of them if you can find them. But I mean, my favorite win was probably the armbar win that I had, because I mean, I do love jiu-jitsu, and nobody's really had a chance to see my jiu-jitsu yet. And most of my ground game, that is, perfect, that people can't really get out of the double leg ride yet. I was telling the guy before the fight for my amateur title fight that, hey man, this is not going to get out of the first round, and I just wanted you to know that. And he was talking about Muhammad Ali, and he was talking about all these other things about running away. And I heard the 10-second clack of the of those wooden clackers that they have when they're letting you know there's 10 seconds left. And I still hadn't finished the fight yet by the first round, and I don't know, out of nowhere I threw an arm bar that I had been setting up for a second, but I just thought I had more time, and somehow I was still able to pull it off and finish him off before the bell. And I thought that was pretty satisfying, just because I was trying to stay true to my word, and I definitely did. So I look forward to keeping that streak going.
You've obviously been having a lot of success. You're gaining a reputation in Oregon and in the Pacific Northwest. And in this sport, it can be very difficult to not buy into all of the chatter. It's fighting, and one mistake and things can change very drastically. How do you handle the hype that's being sort of stowed upon you? How do you stay humble in a sport where, open mouths get fed more often than not?
I think I stay humble because of the people around me. At Art of War, we've got something a little different than a lot of other gyms, because we don't have as much buzz around us. We don't have as much publicity. We're a little bit of a smaller gym, coming out of Eugene. It's pretty old fashioned. Jason's an old fashioned guy, an amazing trainer. But honestly, if you meet him, he's one of the most humble, understanding, really, really easy to talk to guy, and makes things really easy for people, and has taught me, how to be coachable and how to coach others, and how he's learning every day, and when you have a coach that's very humble and very in tune with his curriculum, and just very open to the MMA fight game, and to, hey, like, I saw this, last weekend. What do you guys think, of this technique that this guy used to finish so-and-so? How can we see this and apply this to our game, and just and keep developing, because that's what's important in this game. And it's, it's not about, making the most noise, and it's about, just doing what we love every day. And I think everybody here is on that same page of just enjoying the grind and the process of MMA and jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and boxing. And I think we all love, learning and teaching, and it's a vibe. It's a vibe here for sure.
You get John Simon in a little over 2 weeks. He's an Oregon guy. He has a bit more experience than you overall. He did have a long hiatus from the sport before he turned pro. Since then, 2-1, couple finishes. His one loss was a really close split decision. How familiar are you with John? Did you know much about him outside of the sort of regional circle?
No, I don't. Lucky for him, he's got his older brother that kind of gives him a little status, a little. He can kind of build off that a little bit, but I'm sure, like any other brother kind of deal, I'm not going to look to my brother for any credit, or, I make my own things happen. So I would expect the same from him. And I'm sure he feels the same way, that he's paving his own path. But I've heard some chattering, and these guys think that they're going to come out here and they're going to, do something different than everybody else. And I just don't see that happening. As much as I've heard good things about him and this and that, I've watched some film. I wasn't impressed, and I can be vocal about that. I'm confident in that, and I think that coming out, we're going to be able to work some stuff, and I'm going to be able to show what I'm capable of. And, we're really hoping this guy can last out of the first round, and that's as humbly as I can put that.
Talk about your team. You mentioned your coach. Who are some of the folks you've been working with specifically to get you ready for this fight?
So my main training partner is Adam Fugit, 6-2 pro. He's been fighting in the Pacific Northwest for a while, and he's a dangerous man. I know that there's a lot of heads out in the Pacific Northwest that do not want any of that smoke. So it's been a little tough for him as well, because he hasn't fought since February, I believe. Yeah, it's been a while. Just trying to get another name down on the dotted line, and here we are coming up to November 16th, and he finally got a fight, and we both are on the same fight card, and it's super exciting, especially after training together for this is coming on 2 years. It took him a little while to get warmed up to me, as it is per, any gym, a new guy coming in, getting acclimated with each other. But luckily we're both wrestlers, and we were able to really bond over wrestling and become good training partners. And I think, our matchup styles and everything, we definitely just have that ladder effect where we improve each other every day and we get better, especially with his Muay Thai experience and what a staple he was in the Muay Thai community here on the Pacific, Northwest. He did an amazing job of showing that he had the skills to stand up and strike with many a folk.
Is that something you worry about as you continue to progress? You talk about, him and people in the region not wanting to get his quote unquote smoke, having a hard time finding fights. Do you feel like with the Tong Sai, by the way, it's not thongs, it's Tong Sai. Do you feel like that's something that you might have to deal with moving forward in your career, that you're going to have a hard time finding fights with all the success you've been getting and continue to have?
I don't see that being as much of a problem as it is. I'm just trying to help paint the biggest target on my back. Because the bigger the target, the bigger the fights, the more guys that want to fight you, in the bigger leagues, the better, I guess. As we progress, of course we want to build slow, and I really want to get some quality fights, and I want to be able to build myself up and definitely be like, hey, I can get out of the first, second, third round and show that I have conditioning, that I'm able to, go the distance if I need to be. But as any good fighter, you want to be able to execute the good enough skill to be able to show, like, I don't have to go that far. But I definitely see this progressing, in the same way that it's a goal of mine, like a little goal that I set, that until I make it to the UFC or until I make it to a big show, I'm not going to try to let it out of the first round, That's just, a little goal I set, and I'm going to try to keep strong to it. We'll see how that goes.
How do you paint that big target on your back?
By going out, getting the finish, and trying to make it look like it was easy, as much as we train hard, we want to fight easy. And I think the easier that you make these fights look, the bigger that target gets, because, guys want to see you get out of the first round. They want to see more, because there's so much to the unknown, right? Like for me, for instance, a lot of guys don't really know what my stand-up's like, because I haven't really struck with anybody. Nobody's really forced me into that position, because they haven't been able to stop the takedown when I've gone for it, or, I've shown that I can stand up, at least with the few amateur fights that I've had. My Muay Thai is actually very good in my opinion. I train with Tong Sai, and, I've been working a lot of stand-up for this fight, so I'm very excited for that to be showcased come the time.
When you visualize this fight going down in your head in a little over 2 weeks' time, you versus John Simon, PureCombat Battle of the Brave, how do you see yourself getting it done? How does the fight usually play out in your head?
So, like any other fighter, sure, there's, you will envision the fight, and you'll have 1,000 outcomes in your head. All of them, hopefully being, the way that you want it to go. He throws a punch, I throw a punch. All of a sudden, you get a finish. We all want to visualize that way, and we visualize success. But I definitely just see myself going in there and getting a finish in the first round, and that's, I never will put an exact thing on it, because I'm such a reactive fighter, and I'm such a explosive athlete. I couldn't tell you how the finish will unfold, but I know that it's coming, and it's going to be a devastating one for sure. For sure.
The Heathen train is moving rather quickly here with the win. 3-0 as a pro, 4-0 for the year. It's a hell of a start to your MMA career. What kinds of goals have you set for yourself in 2020? And to kind of add to that, what's the overall brass ring you're searching for in the sport?
So, for my 2020 goals, I definitely got eyes on the UFC. I've got eyes on Bellator. I've got eyes on PFL. It really depends on how the game's going. It all depends on who gets eyes on you, who hears you. Who buys into your story. And that's the interesting thing about the media playing such a strong part these days in the fight game. Everybody wants to see a beautiful story. Everybody wants to see struggle. They want to see people earn it. They don't want to see any free handouts. And I definitely haven't gotten any of those. When you look behind the scenes, you'll see a lot of hard work, a lot of tears, and a lot of blood that have gone into this. And I'm excited for people to see that story and people to really get to know the real part of you when you do make it to that stage. And that's what I love about it so much, is that you're able to share that part of you and share the journey. So I'm excited to hopefully make it to the UFC by either this time next year or going into 2021. That's definitely a long-term goal for me. As it has been since I started the sport. And I don't plan on slowing this train down at all. I definitely want to full steam ahead. I want to stay undefeated. I definitely want to add some knockouts, some cold-blooded, clean KOs, just because that's the fighter in me. I definitely don't want to hear anybody call me a wrestler. Because I'm much more than that. I'm a well-rounded fighter, and I am so ready to prove that coming up on November 16th.
Well, now we got to work on getting your fights more accessible to fight fans, so we can go search them and find them very easily.
Yes, exactly, and that is also a dream of mine, because that's another tough part of the fight game. You start working with these local promotions, and you start working with amateur shows, and you kind of sign away your video rights and your in things like that. And the best that you can do is I live stream my fight on Facebook, or you can catch me on Instagram Live. And then that's just not the same, and it's not the same quality. And the fans are the only ones that really get hurt in that situation, because not everybody can afford to have their fights professionally filmed and things like that, because there's not a lot of money in it. But I definitely think that these next couple of fights, people have no problem being able to watch it, especially on November 16th, Battle for the Brave, which will be streamed on Fight TV live, and it's $14.99.
That's nothing. $14.99. Support your local fighters, people.
Right? You pay $75 to watch some pretty bogus guys fight. I mean, you want to see a good fight, then I would tune into the Heathen and Simone.
There you go. John Simone versus Tobias Baker, the Heathen, joining us on the show. November 16th, it all goes down. PureCombat Battle for the Brave on Fight TV for just $14.99. That's like a week's full of coffee. Just go to the store and buy a thing for $4.99.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely one that I don't think anybody wants to miss, especially after watching him heel hook his last opponent. I'm excited to see if he thinks something like that might work on me. So it'll be interesting.
It just kind of hit me for a second, which I really like. You had mentioned it. Is he Ricky Simone's brother?
Yeah, he is.
Holy shit! Part of my French. Yeah. How did I not realize that? I was looking through and trying to do my homework on it. I had no idea that he was Ricky Simone's brother.
Yeah. So he is, and that was something I was playing on earlier. I wanted to give the guy a little bit of credit, and not try to play him off his brother's name, and I think he's trying to build his own shadow and not necessarily live in his. So I know he's definitely coming to prove himself. So that's what I'm excited to see, because I have older brothers, and I know exactly how that goes. So it's an energy that you bring to the cage with you, is that little brother energy. So I'm excited to see what he's got.
I'm excited for it as well. Thank you for the time, Tobias. Before we let you go, man, let the folks know where they can find and follow you on the web, social media, any shout outs, anything else you want to get off your chest. The floor is yours.
Dude, absolutely. So, you can find me on Instagram at the Heathen MMA. That's my handle. That's my handle on on Twitter, the Heathen MMA. And now I also have a Facebook page, Tobias Baker. You can come follow me for fight info, fight news. I also put my live streams on there. You can follow me on Facebook, Tobias Baker. You can get at me on Snapchat at Toby Smash. You can get at me on all those platforms. I definitely want to shout out to my sponsors and to my manager, Dodge Sports. Thank you so much. I wanted to shout out Joel Torres, man, for all the help that he does. He's a really great guy, creative director for the Scrap and co-founder. He's a really great guy. And then I also want to shout out to all my sponsors, Brad Chevrolet of Cottage Grove. I want to shout out Curtis over there with Evergreen Roofing. And I also want to shout out Living Love Superfoods for keeping me fueled up and keeping me on my toes and keeping me strong. With their amazing protein powder and their supplements. And then a shout out to On It for also keeping me, on the ball. And I think that's about all my sponsors and everything. And then I just want to give a big shout out to my brother who, he just got out of the pen, much love to him. And to my family back home for welcoming them into their open arms. I've been home for fight camp, so I haven't been able to actually go home and see him yet, but, this fight's for you and for all my other brothers back home, for my moms. And, I think that's everybody I want to shout out.
Great catching up with you, Tobias. Hopefully we get to do this again down the road as your career progresses, and all the best to you on November 16th, man.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon.